So we're on lesson 5. We're using equations to solve for unknown angles. And so Tyler thinks that this figure has enough information to figure out the values of A and B. Do you agree? I disagree with Tyler. We don't know how much bigger A is than B. All we know is that A plus B equals to 90. So these two angles are equal to 90. So for 5.2, you have to choose between the two equations what represents this. So Elena said x equals 35. Well, x can't equal 35 because x is a bigger degree than 35. And so Diego is what you would have to agree with, because x plus 35 equals this line of 180. So if I subtract 35 from 180, I get 145. So x equals 145 degrees. And so now for number 2, Elena says 35 plus w plus 41 equals 180. Well, this is a straight line of 180, and you have 35, 41, and w. So I agree with Elena already. And so to solve that equation, I would have to add the two numbers first, which is 76, and then rewrite my equation to say w plus 76 equals 180. And then I take 180 and I subtract 76, and I end up getting w equals 104 degrees. So for number 3, you have this, and so this is not a straight line, so you can't necessarily use 180. However, this is your right angle right here, so you have the w plus the 35 to equal 90. So out of Diego and Elena, Elena is correct because w plus 35 equals 90, which is what we said earlier. So when I solve that, I subtract 35 from 90, and I end up getting 55. So w is 55 degrees. For number 4, I have these two w's and this 35. If I look at this carefully, this is a right angle. And remember, vertical angles means that if this is 35, right across from it, that is 35 as well. And so my equation could be 2w plus 35 equals to 90. So out of the two, Elena is the same equation that we just wrote. So then I end up subtracting 35, which gives me 55. And then I bring down my 2w, and then I divide my 2. And so w ends up equaling 27.5 degrees. And so number 5, I have x, w, and 148. And this is a right angle right here. Remember, this is a straight line. So I have w plus 148 equals 180. So w plus 48 equals 180, yes. And x plus 90 equals 148. So I have x plus 90 equals 148. So this angle equals to this angle. So both of these are actually correct. And so when I solve for w, I have to subtract 148. And so that leaves me with w equaling to 32 degrees. And x, I take 148 and subtract, first I need to write this out, subtract 90, and I end up getting 58, so x equals 58 degrees. Okay, so you're really just solving for the missing angles, and you have to know what your right angle and your straight angle measurements are. So 5.3, find the unknown angle measures and organize it so it can be found by others. So I'm going to write equations to help me solve it, and then I'm going to solve the equations. So again, I know a straight line is 180. And I know that in number 1, W plus 124 gives me that 180 that I need, or that I know. So that's my equation, W plus 124 equals 180. And then I subtract 124 to figure out what W is. And so W ends up being 56 degrees. Okay? So now, number 2, again, this is a straight line, so it has to equal to 180. And so I can write all these together on this side. So I have 23 plus B plus 52. I have to add the two numbers together. So 52 plus 23 is 75. So I have B plus 75 equals 180. To get B by itself, I have to subtract by 75. So B equals 105 degrees. Okay. So number 3, I have 2 x's and 23. And so remember my vertical angles, if this is x, right across from it, that is x degrees as well. And I also know in here that since this is perpendicular, this intersection makes a right angle. So these 2 x's plus the 23 equals to 90 degrees. And then I end up solving for x. So I subtract 23 from 90, and I end up getting 67. And then I divide by 2. So x ends up equaling 33.5 degrees. And then now number 4, I have the 2 m's and the 66 that equals this angle right here. Remember, with vertical angles, this angle is the same as this angle right here. So this angle is 120, and 2 m's plus 66 equals to that 120. So that's how I'm making my equation. And then I can solve for m. So I subtract 66, and I end up getting 154. I'm sorry, just 54, which equals to 2m. And then I divide by 2, so m ends up equaling to 27 degrees. So this is 27 degrees, and this is 27 degrees. Okay? So that's how you would make an equation and solve it based on the angles that are given to you. And so now you need to read up on this summary and complete lesson 5 practice problems on Google Classroom.